You hear a strange laugh in the darkness. It sounds almost human. But it isn't laughter. It's a hyena. For centuries, hyenas have been portrayed as scavengers, cowards, thieves, and creatures that simply wait for other predators to make a kill. But that image is deeply incomplete. Spotted hyenas can hunt large prey themselves. They live in complex social groups called clans. They recognize individuals. They remember social relationships. They cooperate. They compete. And they learn. In some ways, their society is more complicated than we once imagined. And perhaps the most surprising part is that the animal we have spent centuries laughing at may be one of Africa's most fascinating minds. So, what is really happening inside the mind of a hyena? To answer that, we need to forget everything we thought we knew about them. Welcome to the Wild Whisper. For generations, the hyena has been given a simple label: scavenger. An animal that waits, while lions and other predators do the difficult work. But nature is rarely that simple. Spotted hyenas are capable hunters. In some populations, they obtain a large share of their food through active hunting. They can chase prey over long distances, coordinate with other members of their clan, and bring down animals much larger than themselves. So the old image of the hyena, quietly waiting beside a lion's leftovers, tells only half the story. And sometimes, it tells the wrong story entirely. Because the hyena isn't simply surviving on the kills of other predators. It can be the predator making the kill. But hunting is only part of the story. A spotted hyena does not live like a solitary predator. It lives inside a complex society. These groups are called clans. And a clan can contain dozens of individuals. Sometimes many more. Every hyena has a place within that society. Some relationships are stronger than others. Some individuals cooperate closely, while others compete for access to food and social status. And that means, survival isn't only about being strong. It is also about knowing who is who can be trusted, who has higher status, who is an ally, and who should be avoided. For a hyena, understanding its society can be just as important as understanding the savanna around it. Imagine living in a society where you may encounter dozens of individuals every day. You cannot treat everyone the same. You need to know who outranks you, who belongs to your family, who supports you, and who might challenge you. Spotted hyenas appear to keep track of these social relationships. Researchers have found that their behavior changes depending on who they are interacting with. A familiar clan member is not treated like a stranger, and a high-ranking individual is not treated like a lower-ranking one. This ability to recognize individuals and remember their relationships is called social cognition. And in a society as complicated as a hyena clan, knowing who is who can mean the difference between gaining access to food or losing it. A hyena clan is not a random crowd. It has rules. And those rules determine who gets access to food, who gets support, and who gets pushed aside. Spotted hyenas live in a strict social hierarchy. But here's where their society becomes especially unusual. In spotted hyenas, females generally rank above males. And this hierarchy can shape almost every part of their lives. A young hyena does not simply inherit its social position from its mother. It also has to learn where it belongs, who ranks above it, and how to behave around others. For a hyena, social intelligence isn't optional. It is part of growing up. Because in this society, knowing the rules can be just as important as knowing how to hunt. One of the strangest things about hyena society is who holds the power. In spotted hyena clans, females dominate the social hierarchy. Even adult males generally rank below females. And this isn't simply about physical strength. A female's social position can influence her access to food, her interactions with other clan members, and even the social position of her offspring. The highest-ranking female can hold enormous influence within the clan. But this unusual system creates another question. Why would evolution produce a society where females hold so much social power? The answer isn't simple. Scientists are still studying exactly how this system evolved. But one thing is clear. To understand the mind of a spotted hyena, we have to stop thinking of it as a simple predator. Because inside this clan, social status can shape survival. A hyena cub is born into a complicated world. From its earliest days, it is surrounded by dozens of individuals. And every interaction teaches it something. Which hyena is dominant? Which one is a relative? Who can approach the food? And who should be avoided? Young hyenas spend years observing the behavior of adults around them. They watch. They follow. And they gradually learn the social rules of the clan. This is more than simple imitation. Their survival depends on understanding relationships, remembering individuals, and responding appropriately to different members of their society. A cub that misreads the social world could lose access to food, or provoke a dangerous confrontation. So long before a young hyena becomes an experienced hunter, it is already learning another essential skill: how to live with other hyenas. But learning the rules of a clan requires more than watching. Hyenas also communicate. And their communication is far more complex than the famous sound people often associate with them. They use different vocalizations, along with posture, movement, scent, and physical contact. One of the most recognizable sounds is the hyena's famous whoop. It can travel across the African landscape, sometimes over surprisingly long distances. But a whoop isn't simply a random noise. Its timing, structure, and context can carry information. Hyenas also produce lower frequency sounds and other vocal signals during close social interactions. To survive inside a large clan, a hyena needs to pay attention to these signals. Because communication helps individuals coordinate, maintain social relationships, and respond to what is happening around them. In a society this complicated, silence would be a dangerous disadvantage. A complex society needs more than communication. It also needs cooperation. Spotted hyenas often live and hunt in groups. And when several hyenas come together, their combined strength can become far greater than that of a single animal. But cooperation isn't always simple. Each hyena has its own interests, its own relationships, and its own position within the hierarchy. Yet members of the same clan can coordinate their movements, respond to the calls of other individuals, and work together when confronting rivals or defending important resources. This creates a fascinating balance. Every hyena is competing, but it is also cooperating. And that may be one of the secrets behind their success. Because surviving in a hyena clan isn't simply about being strong. It's about knowing when to compete, and when to work together. But cooperation inside a hyena clan creates another challenge. There can be dozens of individuals around you, and every one of them has a different relationship with you. Some are relatives, some are allies, some outrank you, and others may compete with you. So a hyena needs more than a good memory for places. It needs to remember individuals. Researchers studying spotted hyenas have found evidence that these animals recognize members of their social groups, and respond differently depending on their relationships. A hyena's behavior can change depending on who approaches. That means the same stranger, a close relative, or a dominant clan member may each receive a very different response. In a society this complicated, recognizing individuals isn't just useful. It may be essential. Because before a hyena decides what to do, it needs to know who it's dealing with. But recognizing another hyena is only the beginning. The real challenge is remembering what that relationship means. A spotted hyena may encounter the same individual again and again, across months or even years. And previous interactions can influence what happens next. Who is a close ally? Who is a relative? Who has challenged you before? And who can be trusted around valuable resources? These relationships are not fixed. They can change as individuals grow, move through the hierarchy, form new alliances, or lose old ones. For a social predator living in a large clan, remembering these changes can be extremely valuable. Because every encounter adds another piece to the social puzzle. And the hyena isn't living in that puzzle alone. It is constantly updating its place within it. Its social world has a history. And in a society like this, relationships can become powerful. A hyena does not live as an isolated individual. It lives surrounded by relatives, companions, rivals, and higher-ranking animals. Some relationships may be especially important. Hyenas have been observed forming strong social bonds with particular members of their clan. These bonds can influence who stays close to whom, who approaches food together, and who supports whom during social conflicts. But these relationships are not necessarily permanent. A young hyena may rise through the hierarchy. A rival may become less threatening. A familiar companion may disappear. And the social landscape changes again. This means a hyena's world is never completely static. It is a moving network of relationships. And every individual has to keep track of where it stands. Because sometimes, your strongest advantage isn't your strength. It's who stands beside you. But not every relationship begins with a choice. For a spotted hyena, the family you are born into can shape your entire social life. Hyena clans are strongly matrilineal. Young hyenas inherit their mother's social position within the clan. That means a cub is not simply born into a family. It is also born into a social world. A mother provides more than protection. Her position can influence how other clan members treat her offspring. And the cub spends its early life watching, learning, and gradually discovering where it belongs. This creates something remarkable. A young hyena doesn't have to understand the entire hierarchy immediately. It can learn about its social environment through experience, and through the relationships surrounding its mother. So from the very beginning, a hyena's mind is growing inside a social system. It is learning where it belongs. And this is where something fascinating begins. A young hyena doesn't enter the clan knowing every rule. It has to learn them. It watches who approaches whom, who moves away, who gets challenged, and who gets accepted. It watches its mother. It watches older females. And slowly, the chaos begins to make sense. Through repeated experiences, the cub can begin to understand patterns in its social world. It learns which individuals are familiar, which situations are risky, and how to behave around different members of the clan. This kind of learning doesn't require words. It happens through observation, experience, and memory. And as the cub grows, those lessons become part of the knowledge it carries into adulthood. The clan becomes its classroom. As the young hyena grows, the lessons it learned become experience. And experience can change how an animal responds to the world around it. A familiar situation may no longer require hesitation. A known individual may receive a different response than a stranger. And a dangerous situation may be recognized before it becomes a serious threat. This is where memory becomes more than remembering. It becomes useful information. Every successful interaction, every conflict avoided, every resource defended, and every mistake survived, can add another piece to the animal's experience. Over time, those experiences may help shape future decisions. For a hyena living inside a complicated clan, that can be incredibly valuable. Because survival isn't always about reacting fastest. Sometimes, it's about knowing what you've seen before, and knowing what to do next. Inside a hyena clan, every interaction carries information. A hyena isn't simply asking, "Who is that?" It may also be asking, "Who is watching? Who has the advantage? Who will support me? And is this the right moment to act?" This makes life inside the clan a constant social calculation. A hyena may approach one individual confidently, but behave cautiously around another. It may join a group when cooperation is useful, and keep its distance when competition becomes risky. These decisions happen within a complicated network of relationships. And the more relationships an animal has to navigate, the more important social intelligence becomes. For a spotted hyena, survival isn't only about finding food. Sometimes, survival means knowing when to make a move. But intelligence is not simply remembering what happened before. It is knowing when an old lesson no longer applies. A situation can change. A familiar individual can rise in rank. A new rival can enter the clan. A food source can disappear. And suddenly, the strategy that worked yesterday may no longer work today. For a spotted hyena, living in a constantly changing social world may require flexibility. It must respond to new individuals, new relationships, and new challenges. That doesn't mean every decision is conscious or deliberate. But behavior can be shaped by experience. And experience can change future responses. The remarkable part is this: a hyena doesn't simply live through events. Its experiences can become information. And that information can influence what happens next. In a world that keeps changing, flexibility can be intelligence. Perhaps the most fascinating thing about the hyena is that its intelligence makes sense when you look at the world it lives in. A spotted hyena does not survive alone. It lives in one of the most socially complex societies found among carnivores. It must compete for resources, navigate relationships, recognize individuals, raise young, and respond to a constantly changing hierarchy. Every part of that environment creates a problem to solve. And over generations, natural selection may have favored animals capable of handling those problems. So perhaps the hyena's intelligence isn't an accident. Perhaps it is the result of living in a world where social knowledge matters, where memory matters, where flexibility matters, and where understanding others can be just as important as understanding yourself. The hyena's greatest weapon may not be its jaws. It may be its mind. For centuries, the hyena has been misunderstood. Its laugh was mistaken for cruelty. Its scavenging was mistaken for weakness. And its unusual appearance made it easy to turn it into a villain. But look closer, and a very different animal appears. A predator capable of cooperation. A mother raising young inside a complex society. An animal that remembers individuals, navigates relationships, learns from experience, and adapts when the rules around it change. The hyena is not simply surviving on the African plains. It is constantly reading them. Its world is built from relationships, memory, competition, cooperation, and experience. And perhaps that is the lesson hidden inside the hyena. Intelligence doesn't always look the way we expect. Sometimes, it laughs. Sometimes, It waits. Sometimes it walks away. And sometimes the animal we misunderstood the most turns out to be one of the most fascinating minds in the wild. This is the Wild Whisper, where we don't just look at what animals do. We ask why. Stay curious. Keep listening. The wild is always speaking.